on this hour to talk about that. Right now, let's talk about what happened downtown Hamilton over the weekend. The statue of Sir John A. Macdonald, which has been at Gore Park for some time now, it's not there anymore. That's the bottom line. It was toppled in downtown Park, of course, on Saturday. Hundreds of people attended a rally, first of all at City Hall, and then went over to Gore Park. And the statue, well, ropes are tossed around it, etc. You know the story by now. John Best is the publisher of the Bay Observer. He joins us on the Bill Kelly Show to talk about this. John, thanks for the time. Good to have you with us today.
My pleasure, Bill.
Was this inevitable?
Oh, yeah. I mean, as soon as, how many times over the summer did we see the statue get red paint put on it, had the blanket and the ropes tied around it. So, yeah, it was absolutely inevitable. And it happened this weekend.
Was it necessary?
Well, you know, I'm not going to in any way try to defend Sir John A. Macdonald, other than to say that he was a product of his time. So if we are saying that Sir John A. was a genocidal racist, we have to also acknowledge that just about everybody else in Canada was at the same time, because that was the prevailing philosophy at the turn of the last century. Is, you know, to some degree it's rooted in Christianity, this idea that Christians had an obligation to convert people to their religion and their way of life. Having said all that, I can certainly understand why Aboriginal people would obviously see him as a symbol of oppression. What I would say, though, about was it necessary, I guess, you know, if there's interest in reconciliation, this is not the kind of event that is going to promote any kind of reconciliation. There's a lot of Canadians out there who, you know, who are moderate, liberal-minded people. They don't have hate in their heart. And this kind of thing, you know, may generate anger, I guess, or generate pushback where it wouldn't have existed had this not happened. So it clearly does not support any move towards reconciliation.
Well, quite to the opposite end of this. Is it a polarizing effect?
Well, I think it is, and God knows we're so polarized now. You know, when you go on social media, I mean, frankly, I mean, there is no middle. The biggest minority, I would say, in Canada right now are people with moderate views. So, yeah, it's there's going to be, and it's going to be that kind of a silent pushback, I think. You know, it was interesting, this rally, Bill. On the Friday before the rally, somebody who organized the event had hired a public relations company to try to generate some media interest. And there was a speaker who spoke at the City Hall event. And I don't know what the message was, but it certainly, the fact that they were organizing some kind of public relations seemed to me point to the fact that somebody in the group at least was trying to send you know, some kind of a message to the public other than the pulling down of the statue. But that of course is completely lost, because there's been no discussion of anything that took place at the City Hall forecourt. Now it's all about the statue. Well,
and there were two parts of this, and I'm glad you brought that up, because this really started with a rally that was held in front of City Hall on Saturday, and that was planned. And one of the organizers, after the fact, was mentioning that they said tearing down the statue was not part of what they had anticipated doing. They wanted to create awareness and some understanding about their side of the issue, and which is what a lot of demonstrations are all about. I get that, but they moved from there over to Gore Park. And I saw one rather cryptic note on social media that says it kind of reminded with Donald Trump sending them up the street to the Capitol building. I'm not so sure if the analogy is accurate or fair, but it does point to the fact that when you've got a group of people like that are energized, shall we say, it's difficult to say just how they're going to respond, I guess.
Well, and I did notice on social media that there were several pictures posted of the toppling of the statue, and they were posted by the same gentleman who we used to see on TV every night in the Caledonia blockade. So, you know, I would think that the rally probably had a spectrum of people participating, and to a certain extent, it looks like the event kind of got hijacked. It went from what was supposed to be positive messaging, or at least some kind of public education at City Hall, and it went from there to this act of symbolism, which, frankly, I don't know what it will do other than make more people angry than were angry up to that point.
Well, one account suggested that after the statue came down, that the other people defaced it while it was on the ground, taking a hammer to the face of the statue, and as you mentioned, some paint, and somebody else, I guess, took a saw or something like that to it, which sends a whole different message. I mean, if the statue's down, the statue's down, but to go to this point, I'm just wondering how people are going to respond. And frankly, I guess, and I'm going to find out in a second when we talk to one of the city councilors, John, how does city council respond? I mean, they did have this before them. There was a possible decision they could have made, and by a vote of 10-3, I think it was, they decided to do nothing and wait until this report about statues all over the city came down, which is not unusual for city council to kick things down the road like this. But it's a frustrating exercise, and I guess this was an example of that frustration.
As is so often the case with Hamilton Council, the decision ended up being made for them.
Yeah. People doing something that they had thought was going to be happening a long time ago. So does this statue ever see the light of day again?
I don't think so. I can't imagine anybody at this point having the nerve to propose putting it up again. It's unfortunate because I think, most people, and I do, again, understand why First Nations people would see it as a hostile symbol. But for most people, that statue and the Queen Victoria statue and other of these kind are really not much more than public art at this point. The McDonald statue was erected by the forerunner of the Hamilton Chamber of Commerce at the time. I think the main reason they put the statue up to honor him was because he had protective tariffs in place to protect Canadian business. That would probably be what they were honoring more than anything else. But for most people, like when you drive through the Gore and you look at the statue, first of all, you shouldn't be driving distracted. But secondly, I don't think anybody contemplates Sir John A. Macdonald as a person or ponders the history. It's just a piece of public art. So it's a really perplexing thing to see all this revisionism of history where you had people that were the product of their times. Again, this Henry Dundas, in that case, I think they've got the history wrong. What I've read seems to suggest that he was an anti-slaver. But, this whole idea of refocusing historical figures through today's standards, to me, is just intellectually crazy.
Well, it's an ongoing exercise, and the other aspect we're going to get into in just a couple of seconds here is, should charges be laid? This is an act of civil disobedience. I know police are investigating this. If they lay charges, does that throw gasoline onto the fire?
Well, it probably does, but I think we have to decide in Canada whether we enforce laws for everybody. If a bunch of skinheads pulled that statue down, they'd be sitting over on Barton Street right now. So I think there has to be some consistency, I don't know. It looks like the police are prepared to try to investigate the case. They posted pictures of the perpetrators, so it looks like there's an investigation going on.
Well, we'll find out in the days and weeks ahead just how they're going to respond to this. John, as always, thanks so much for the time. Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, Bill.